Well, let's talk random archaeology, episode 1. And I'm Howard Williams, and I'm joined by
Afnan Ezzeldin. So I'm Afnan. Yeah, just Afnan.
and we've done a first of an experimentation in podcasting, really, where we're going to be trying
Yes.
to address a whole host of exciting topics relating to archaeology in the UK, but on a global scene, themes that interest us. And we really wanted to start off with sort of myth-busting undergraduate archaeology degrees, because I know Afnan as a ex-student who's now off in other parts of the world. Where are you, Afnan, anyway? I don't exactly know where you are. Somewhere outside the UK, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm in Japan, so I'm actually in Kanagawa, Japan, to the Kanagawa prefecture just outside of Tokyo. So it's quite nice here. I recommend it. It's summer, so it's pretty good weather. But yeah,
So for
quite
those that
far
are
away.
more COVID bound and our worlds have shrunken, that's just over the channel and a little further beyond France, isn't it? Japan, I think. Yeah, and it's quite a way away. Yeah. And this is very international. It's a way of, given I can't travel anywhere much, and at the moment it makes me feel international seeing people. So on the other side of the world, and it's morning there and it's evening where I'm talking, and it's all very internationally and jet setty.
Yes.
Really, that's the way I see it. And
Well, yeah.
but yeah, Afnan, when did you finish your degree with Chester, University of Chester? When did you?
It was 20. So I finished my undergrad in 2017, and then I finished my master's in 2018, I think.
Oh, way back in the
Yeah.
day, before
Yeah.
the event, before
I
doom
know,
struck.
right? It feels like doomsday's happened for sure.
Yeah. And yeah, so I mean, I thought it'd be really good to have a conversation with Afnan, because she's off doing teaching, but she comes from an archaeology degree background, two archaeology degree backgrounds, and I thought she'd be a great person to give insights, her personal insights into archaeology degrees, and then in other future episodes we'll go off onto random other topics. I mean, really wanted, that was the rationale of doing this as opposed to my usual YouTubey stuff. I mean, I wanted to know, well, first question I want to ask you, Afnan, is because I obviously did an archaeology degree back in the wild days of the 1990s, back in the 20th century, where almost anything seemed possible. But you've obviously got a more recent degree. But I mean, I suppose the first thing I thought people would be interested in us discussing is why why choose a degree subject? Why choose archaeology as a degree subject? I mean, why did you choose archaeology as a degree subject, for crying out loud? I mean, why did you choose archaeology as a degree subject?
Like, I think that maybe a lot of people would answer this question like, oh, I used to involve myself in a lot of digs and I really enjoyed archaeology as a subject and I really wanted to get into it and I love history and stuff like that. But like, in all honesty, I was never exposed to archaeology. Like, well, my family is Egyptian, so I guess I was exposed to the pyramids and we used to go and see stuff, but it never really occurred to me as archaeology. It was just kind of, oh, that's like a cool thing to do during the day. um, and I was really interested in history. I liked history, but I don't I didn't want to like read books and I didn't want to like kind of have this outlook that I feel history has, where it's, how like it's the winners who write about it. And I'm not really interested in the people on top. So I
Yeah.
was like, I think I want something a bit more practical. And I was like, oh, wait, that's archaeology. So I kind of went into it that way. And the rationale was that I kind of just wanted to be a bit more hands-on with the history that we have at work. So yeah, I guess like that's why I picked archaeology.
So like all the stories that aren't in the history books, is what you seem to be
Yeah.
saying. I like that. I
Yeah,
like that as an idea. That's very much more
definitely.
idealistic, actually. You say, "Oh, I don't know much about archaeology," and I just thought, but that's a much more sort of intellectual reason than my kind of reasons, I guess. But I don't know.
What was yours?
I don't know. I just, well, actually, it's very similar, actually, in one sense of just being exposed to historic sites and
Mm.
traveling. I didn't travel far, mainly in the UK, but just being exposed and being interested
Yeah.
in the bigger stories and the deeper stories of the human past. But I don't know if I ever rationalized it to myself in that way. I just thought it was a cool subject, and it began first letter of the alphabet in the university prospectuses. And to be honest, I thought, well, what subject could I tolerate for 3 years that would keep my interest? But so that's why I said it was a bit more noble or intellectual. Your response, but there's a connection there. Interest.
Yeah.
Family visits as a kid to sites. Yeah. So I suppose there's a connection. So we're almost the same, but you have a much
Of
more
course.
coherent rationale.
Not really. I think I made it sound a bit more rational, but it probably wasn't. It was probably the same, like, oh, scrolling down, like there are so many subjects. Oh wait, archaeology, what the hell's that? Probably something like that.
But the way you
I think.
characterized it there was like sort of like the pyramids are just a, hey guys, they're 5 minutes down the door from where I mean, were they local to you?
Yeah, so well, like my family live in my extended family. They live in Cairo,
Okay.
and well, the pyramids are in Giza, so they're also in Cairo. And I mean, my family, or I guess Egyptians in general, they don't really like. You will see if you just log into any Egyptian's Facebook, for example, you will see they will have selfies of themselves, and the pyramids are just in the background. Like it's just not even
Yeah.
like a spectacular thing. So I always wanted to go because I was like, dude, they're like huge triangular random stuff, like that's so cool, let's go and like let's look. And I grew up on like the mummy movies and stuff like that, so I mean I was really interested in it, and so was my dad was kind of willing to take me rather than being interested.
Uh-huh.
um, but my family were just like, we're not waking up at 7 a.m. to go to the pyramids with you, like sit down. And I was like, oh, but I really want to go. So I think I was really interested in seeing the pyramids, but everyone else is just like, yeah, it's just your garden. Like you can go, I mean, you can see them from the McDonald's, and you can see the McDonald's from the pyramids, and it's
Yeah, yeah.
not as beautiful and as, you know, scenic as they want you to think it
No,
is.
no, exactly. You know, I've never been, but I can imagine like all these sites. They had so many of the shots are captured from a very narrow field
Yeah,
of. And it's the
yeah,
same with most historic sites, isn't it? You know, sort of you
yeah.
think, oh, I didn't know. And McDonald's happen to be everywhere. You know, and that they are the
Oh
common.
yeah.
You know.
Of course, there's McDonald's. I don't know. There's like a bunch of other American food places too. I just remember the McDonald's because we used to go there quite often and play in like the ball pit. Oh yeah, it's quite fun actually. But I definitely recommend going there if you've never been after this whole pandemic is over.
Well, exactly. That I think the world will open up at in some fashion, some way.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, so that's why you wanted to do. I mean, but why Chester of all places? Because and why not Chester? I mean, that is the answer. Obviously, it's the only place to study archaeology. But I mean, what drew you to Chester's degree? You know, or was it a bit random?
It's interesting because for me, I didn't want to set my standards too high and kind of like apply for all of these, you know, like Cambridge and Oxford. Like there was no way I was going to do that. And I think that Chester had um, a really nice university, actually. It was a really beautiful university. It felt kind of right because not only with the, I'm not like, because of course it is about the grades and it is about whether you can even get in. And I think Chester had a very, I could do it. I could
Yeah,
actually get
achievable.
that. Yeah, achievable. Thank you. Yes.
Again,
Um,
very similar to my rationale for, I mean, I was
yeah.
never Oxbridge material and I don't think I'd ever fitted in, but you know, it was never going to happen even if I, you know, wanted to, you know. So yeah, I had to look around for other places and,
Mm,
ended up going somewhere I felt comfortable, you know. I don't know, I felt,
yeah.
you know, the city, this was different. This is Sheffield, which obviously the bastards are
Mm.
closing now, but
Oh,
but Sheffield's
really?
a great department that's just announced its closure of its archaeology department, of which I was an undergraduate, you know, which I'm very angry about. But you know, I just everything felt. I saw it in the most miserable weather with the most disinterested lecturer showing us around on an open day, who shall remain nameless, but is a lovely chap, but has the most. I wish I wasn't even here face, and
Oh,
and he was, but still, even despite those factors, despite the sheets of rain and why am I even here looking lecturer? I just got a vibe that this was right for me. And I think that's what you often have to go with. I feel, I don't know.
yeah. I mean, I think you're definitely right. I think if you just feel comfortable there, and I think you're right in that, like, if we're not, even if we wanted to get to Oxbridge, I feel like maybe we're not Oxbridge material personality wise. And maybe we're just telling ourselves that because we couldn't make it. I mean, who knows?
Well, when I was a postgraduate researcher, I ended up interacting with a lot of Oxford PhD
Mm.
or DPhil students, you know, doing the same thing and going
Okay.
to the libraries more. And then it was really interesting to see how different the culture was, and the whole intonation, the way there's individual accents within sort of colleges, and you can get a sense of bizarre sort of cultures or subcultures there. And yeah, it really realized how, you know, cultures develop even on a micro scale within academic communities, that people can sort of discern the way you speak, the way you behave,
Yeah.
It was so, but as an undergraduate, I was a million miles away from any of my experience. I just went to a sort of northern sort of post-industrial town city, but you got to go to a lovely city, of course, of Chester, which much
Yeah. Well,
nicer to look
I
at than
don't know.
Sheffield, even though Sheffield's nice.
Sheffield's not bad. It's okay.
Yeah, it has its nice bits. It's not all grim.
No, not at all. I don't know. I felt like Chester, honestly, I realized, like, I think it was in my first year that I thought Chester was actually a really good fit for the archaeology department. I felt like the thing is, I don't know, the university itself is small, and because there are so many different like campuses that are dotted around, like in Warrington or whatever, like things are split up, so you feel like it's not this big scary place. So it's actually really comforting being there. And the archaeology department, well, it's in Binks building, so it's like literally the second you get into the campus, it's there. So it felt like easy. And I don't know, like Chester's full of like archaeology, but also it's not like I would say it's like a student town, student city. I mean, I guess it's a city because it has a cathedral, but like it's not a city, it's a town. But
it's not massive, is it? It's not cities.
Yeah, so it felt right, and it felt like they were in contact with the archaeology, unlike maybe I feel like in a bigger university you'd be traveling miles or just going to the nearest museum, which wasn't really the case for archaeology. For Chester, sorry, I guess, but I don't know. That's just my opinion. Chester was a really nice university, though.
So when you got there in your first year, so that's why you went. When you got there, did it? What's the first year at university like in doing an archaeology degree, or just generally? I mean, what do you remember most about that first year?
Oh, I don't know if I remember much.
I remember you.
Oh, really? I remember our interaction in the last day of first year, because it was like, I remember our heritage lecture. I remember our heritage lectures, and I really hated heritage at the time.
That's because I was teaching it. Was that it?
I thought you were really scary, and I was kind of like, I was like, oh, he's strict, and I'm like not gonna be good at this subject, and I'm kind of scared because like I don't know. I was just like, oh my God, like what do I do? Like I don't know, with the other subjects that we were studying, it felt very, I mean, of course heritage was introductory too, but like I felt like the other subjects were kind of like, oh yeah, you should remember this, but you don't really have to if you don't want to. It was kind of like you should write it down, but you don't have to. Whereas I felt like with heritage, it was like, you don't remember this, you're going to regret it for the rest of your archaeological life.
Yeah, I
And
put the fear of a lot into the first years. I sort of set an expectation. And for listeners who know me, I don't usually teach on the heritage modules, but I was standing in for a colleague that year, and so the poor first years got me teaching heritage and taking them on field trips to Whittington Castle and Old Oswestry, Iron Age Hill Fort, and I remember Afnan sort of quizzing me about medieval castle design and
really?
yeah, I remember that. You were very
Excellent.
interested in the hydrology, how the moats were, or what's this moat even doing here? And I gassed on about something about the location and the feed of the water feed and stuff, blah blah blah. Yeah, I remember that anyway.
It's interesting. I mean, there shouldn't be a moat there, but yeah.
It's a weird dynamic with some of these castles. You go, what the hell is what's going on here? Where's this coming from? Yeah, I remember that anyway. But yeah. Yes, I'm sorry about that, but I'm sorry I put you off heritage.
No, not at all. Actually, like, because I mean, we still had to take it in second year anyway. But I think I actually grew to kind of like heritage. I think it kind of gave us a more rounded and well explained kind of idea about what archaeology is, especially when it comes to, well, museums and things like that. Whereas I feel like heritage, if someone asked me, like, what's archaeology, I'd be like, I'd definitely swerve into the concept of, oh, well, is it authentic? And that already is like, authenticity and all that stuff. I remember learning that in university in my first year and in my second year. And you didn't necessarily put me off. I just don't think it was for me. But it was a really good subject. Like now that I think about it, it was necessary to learn. So like, yeah, I guess, but I don't know. I feel first year was a lot of making friends, trying to find your comfort zone, and like just trying to keep your head above water because it's a very different environment. It's a really different kind of experience. And like,
Intimidating
I don't know,
sounds.
like that was for me. Like, how was your first year? Like, maybe it was different.
Yeah, no, I've very similar. I mean, it's intimidating. Big lectures, I was at, big lecture rooms. I mean,
Yeah.
not really knowing anybody, trying to sort of walk in and out with people and say hi, and I'm Howard, and I wasn't very confident really
Yeah.
as a human being until I was about 47. So last year, no, so you know what I mean. It takes a long time to sort of get. Yeah, so the social side didn't really happen for me. I didn't really. I was in a big hall, and I was yeah, I sort of
Um,
knew a few people on my corridor, but I sort of became friends with the real misfits. I mean, hyper misfits. People, even the misfits didn't talk to. I
oh,
became friends with. So yeah, no, but I did make friends. Yeah, eventually, after a fashion. Um, the one guy who
yeah.
didn't leave his room for 3 weeks at the beginning of this term, I ended up being mates with him.
Oh,
So
would you look at that?
you know, he was very he's a history teacher now, but he was very shy and very nervous. So my point is, yeah, it's tough, isn't it, on the social side, and just trying to work out what the heck you're supposed to be doing, essays, assignments. But we don't have to talk about that
Yeah.
sort of thing. But everything is new and intimidating, and at least you had I had lecturers who didn't speak. I had these are brilliant, famous archaeologists, and people will know who I mean. But I had a whole introduction to the Mesolithic and the Neolithic by a guy with a very heavy Czech accent. So I spent a whole lecture trying to work out what salmons were and what villages were, and realizing he's talking about salmon and villages and things like that. And it just so there was language issues, and then there was an American lecturer who everyone will know, so and all sorts of different parts, different ways of presenting the research and trying to work out what people are talking about.
Yeah.
And it's just all bewildering really, my first year. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of I think everyone's there to support you if you have a crisis, I think. But still, I think it is quite intimidating wherever you go.
I think so, but I don't know. I don't know what your archaeology like. Well, when your first year was like, but like ours was really small. Like our class
Yeah,
itself was really small. We had like maybe 15
yeah,
students, and I mean like some of them are even half history, half geography as well. So I mean like it was pretty small and compact, and it was kind of nice because we kind of made friends at like in class together, and it was easy to talk to each other. It wasn't as like, oh my god, there's 100 students in this classroom, like who am I going to talk to? It kind of just came together quite nicely, but I don't
I
know
think
if it was
that's a really important thing people need to be aware of, because at some universities, if you're doing archaeology in the first year, you've got lots of people who are taking it just as a first year subject, and they're on a history program, but they're taking archaeology in the first year as supplementary, whereas we
yeah,
don't do that at Chester. We students who are on our programs, they can jump from combined honors to single honors or single honors to combined honors, but
yeah,
frankly, we don't waste a year of rehearsing stuff. So you're really on our program, so you're not sitting in with 50 other students who are really you'll never see again after the first year because they're going
yeah,
off. So actually that's a really positive thing. It's a small group size, it's a collegiate. Whereas my experience of a first year was like literally in a lecture theatre of 120,
oh my
of
god,
which only perhaps a third were archaeology degree program students. The rest were, oh yeah, take archaeology because it's a first year subject to take while I'm heading off on my philosophy degree or my biblical studies degree or my
oh,
history degree or English language, and so they took archaeology in the first year only, and that was really sucked, and it just you didn't know who was who, and yeah,
yeah,
so Chester doesn't do that. And the other thing people need to be aware of is I didn't do any heritage as an undergraduate. I didn't do any
oh,
heritage, and Chester's
really,
got a real good. Yeah, so I mean, right, I knew about museums existed, yeah, sure, and
yeah,
but there was no, or historic landscape conservation and the value of, there was like brief mentions, but I never had to write a single essay trying to link archaeology to current politics, archaeology to current
Mm.
cultural debates. The only place perhaps I came across it as an undergraduate was in discussing repatriation and reburial within a burial archaeology module. That this really matters to indigenous communities and that kind of thing. And that there's a whole process of NAGPRA, which was new in those days in the US, and then in Australasia we had learned about Maori indigenous
Yeah.
rights, but that was only a snippet, and the rest we didn't do anything. Whereas at Chester, students do or can take sort of
Mm.
heritage modules alongside the archaeology. God, I hadn't even thought about this because it's such a, so I teach on it now. It's a embedded part of what I do now. But yeah, I didn't have any of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That is really interesting because I would have said that for me, heritage was a really important part of my first year for my archaeology degree anyway. But yeah, that is really interesting actually. Very different experiences, I guess. But yeah.
So was the second and third year any different, or was it just more of a continuum for you? Did you feel you settled in quickly, or was it really a dislocation when you went into the second and third year?
I think I got way too relaxed in my second and my third year, like especially so like with with second year, and I don't know if it's just me or with it was like across like you notice like you become like kind of so you have your friends and you have your lecture friends, and then you have the people who you always see in the library because you're always doing the assignment at the same time. So I don't know, like I'll leave them nameless, but like we had a group of people who were always in the library, and it was always like stupidly last minute assignment rushes, like, oh my God, like I don't know what to do. And it was literally every single time that I feel like I became really lax with my second and my third year. And I don't know, like, because I know that this isn't the case for people who take other subjects, because I have friends who took like, medicine or like sciences or physics and math, and these kind of like what you might consider like super heavy, like smart people, whatever subjects, like, um, yeah, because smart people don't say smart people subjects. um, I feel like the motivation in their work and in their classwork and their assignments, it was much higher than I guess the motivation in archaeology for me or for the people that I seem to be with. Like for us, it was like, oh yeah, well, I have an assignment due. Oh, but it's okay. Like I have time because I mean, I have to think about it anyway. Archaeology is really about thinking, and it's about looking at the wider kind of concepts. Whereas like, I mean, I don't know physics and I don't know math, but I mean, like, there's an answer. So you just do the equation and then there's an answer. And I feel like because archaeology was a very theoretical subject in that way, the second and the third year kind of took its toll in that, oh, yeah, but it's just theory. So I just need to think about it. And it's like, no, you
Do the
need to
reading.
put it down on paper and you need evidence. And I think that this kind of laissez-faire attitude that I had about archaeology in my second and my third year really kind of just it wasn't ideal, but it really changed because in my first year I really wanted to be the best and I wanted to work really hard and I wanted to do, well, I was motivated to, be the best archaeologist. But I think that like in second and third year, life kind of catches up with you, and then you're kind of caught between my university lifestyle and my friends and my house and my, stupid arguments that you have with your roommates or whatever,
Yeah.
and club activities as well. Like, if you were in, I don't know, like societies and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Whereas in first year, you're like, I need to make friends and I need to study. Those are your
Okay.
two main kind of, important things like that you need to focus on. So like, that's how I feel like second and third year was different, is that you really need to start prioritizing. And people who prioritize study, of course, did better, but people who don't, and I think this goes across the board, if you start prioritizing your society or your friends, I mean, it's fine and it's great to have a social life, but yeah, that's where it differs.
You
But
can't
like, I
expect
don't
the
know.
results to miraculously happen if you don't put the work in. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Unfortunately. No, but exactly that. So it's a bit of a shame, to be honest. I think I could have worked a lot harder, and I don't regret anything because it is what it is, and my life hasn't, you know, fallen to nothing. But like, I do wish that I had studied harder and I worked harder in my second and my third year. But yeah, I don't know. What was it like for you?
Well, I mean, before I answer that, I have to say,
Oh,
for those who don't know Afnan, she's incredibly self-deprecating because she achieved a very excellent result in her degree. And but I would, and to back you up and to defend you further, spent a lot of my undergraduate degree feeling I wasn't doing enough, and what was I wasting time? It feels like lots of dead ends. Every essay is like wasted time on stuff that you don't
yeah,
realize is relevant, and then you realize, well, now I realize that's what research is, or any kind of study is. A lot of it feels wasted, and you go, for crying out loud, I read that entire book and it was shit, and there's nothing in it that
yeah,
I'm going to use in my essay, or or there's very little, yeah. So there's always that but that anxiety and that feeling that, and the other thing in defense of you is these boffins, these maths and other subjects that you characterize as the smart people, they actually look smart in the same way as the grass always looks greener on the other side of the,
yeah,
it's a, people look like they're working hard because I found that a lot of other students in my own subject area, in other subject areas, are absolute liars and bullshitters. Oh yeah, I was up all night. I was up all night. No, you weren't. I know you weren't all, because I saw you in the pub last night. You
oh
weren't
my
all
god,
up all night doing your essay. The people spin yarns, shall we say,
yeah,
about how hard they work. There were those that would generally work hard, but I think so. My point is, I bet a lot of those people you saw and thought, oh, I bet they're really working hard. They're probably just sitting there looking clever because they're wearing a particular type of glasses and a scarf and think that makes them look intellectual, when really they're just tossing around most of the time. But anyway, sorry, that's just my defense of you. But that
thank you.
sense of that sense of, I felt that shared sense of shit, everyone else is working harder, everyone else is better than me. I'm never going to be able to do this stuff. I don't even know how to write an essay. And even though I've just gone, even in the third year, last lot of essays, there were moments I was going, how do I do an essay? What am I doing
Yeah,
here? It's not, it's never feels, you never feel in control in academia, and I don't think so anyway, unless there are a few, I have occasional PATs who come in and go, yeah, it's going fine, I have no problems, and then you see the essay results and you go, yeah, because you're not even aware of what you're doing, you're so lacking in self-critical skills. So I think it's good to have that sense of self-deprecation and fear and worry and anxiety, because there are characters out there who have nothing, and they don't know. Oh yeah, I may have only got 20%, but I think the lecturer didn't understand my genius. No, it's just you didn't do any. I'm exaggerating. There aren't many students who think that way, but I'm being silly. But my point is, I think it's good to be self-critical a little bit,
yeah,
but it's about trying to rein it in, control it, because I think you
of
can.
course.
Yeah. So I remember some subjects, and it was actually with my master's degree where I went really
Mm,
downhill. Not downhill, but I completely fluffed an essay in my master's degree, and
mm,
because I hated the essay question, and I tried my best to
yeah.
answer it in a tangential way. It may have been
Oh,
just a
really?
shite. It's just a shite essay, in other words, but but you have moments, don't you, when it all feels like it's falling apart, is I think
Yeah.
fair to say.
I mean, like, it's funny that you say that because I remember in third year there was I don't even remember what the essay question was, but it was GIS based. I
Oh
remember,
no, I mean, all
and
good.
honestly, yeah, that was exactly my reaction. I was like, oh no, and I didn't. It wasn't even that I didn't have time for it. I didn't want to have time for it. It wasn't even that I couldn't be bothered. It was like I knew that I guess I just knew that I wasn't going to be able to do it, even if I put 100 hours of work into it. And I was just like, should I just really kind of half-ass my way through this essay and just kind of submit and just about pass? And
Yeah.
I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just do that. And now that I think about it, I definitely wish that I, of course, I completely deserved the grade that I got. I'm actually surprised that I even got the mark that I did, because it definitely wasn't worth a pass. But
Oh,
like, yeah, but it was just sometimes you get those assignments and you're just like, oh my god, like what how do I even conceptualize this question, and
yeah.
what the hell am I supposed to even do with this? And yeah, sometimes your lecturers are just on different pages to you, but they're the lecturer, so you have to get on that page. Kind of.
Yeah,
But,
it's interesting
mm,
balancing act, because I hear students say a lot about, you got to sort of read the room, so to speak, read what the lecturer is trying to
Yeah.
get out of you. But then equally, it shouldn't really be about what the lecturer wants, in my view. It should, yes, you're right that the lecturer maybe has a particular personality, a particular
Mhm.
a bias, a particular emphasis in their research.
Yeah.
You know what they're looking for, but really, you should be free. And I like to think that I reward students when they completely disagree or they've taken the question in a different direction. But if they
Mm.
do something really exciting with it, I won't go, no. Although I remember one guy that you met about a few years after you, I gave him such a bad mark in his second year because he wrote about completely the wrong century. And so
Oh,
it should have been a first class essay if I'd asked him to talk about the bleeding 19th century, which I hadn't. So he was really, it was like he took it as a real slap in the face, and he got a first
yeah.
class degree in the end, and now he's off
Oh,
doing a master's elsewhere. And in a positive way, he blames me. He says, that mark was such a wake up call for, so he
yeah.
sort of, to put words in his mouth, he knew he so heinously fluffed up that
Yeah.
there was no way out. There's no way I could give him marks for stuff that was so way off the essay question. It was like,
Yeah.
it's like
Oh,
if
that's so
it's
sad.
equivalent of saying I'm asking about the origins of farming and you talk about the Paleolithic. It was that level of complete.
Oh,
There's no way I could salvage it for him. And yet, but he took that to heart and worked extra hard to
yeah.
compensate for that. So I think I don't think that's an extreme example, but I think yeah.
Yeah. He sounds like the best of us, really,
Oh,
working extra hard after a fluff
he's
up.
a yeah. So it's all my fault. And only I mean I claim him as my success,
Oh,
even though
really?
he
It's
can't
always
talk
your
in
fault,
this
Howard.
conversation. He can't answer back, can he? So
Exactly.
I told him all
Exactly.
he knew, like all these other people that would deny knowing me, but they still owe me. I still owe me everything.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. So funny.
They deny it, but they know they owe me one, including, of course, all of the famous people, all the TV celebrities.
Of
They
course.
all learnt it from me.
Well, I mean, what would we have done without you, I think, is the
Exactly.
most, important question.
I think basically I'm responsible for most things that are going wrong in the world at the moment: climate crisis, COVID, you know,
Oh, yeah.
the
We'll
destruction of
blame you for that,
archaeology
too.
degrees. It's all my fault. But I think
Definitely.
but I mean, I did want to ask you, actually, Afnan, about
Yeah.
so what would you call, is this a tough one to ask? This is a personal thing, and you may not want to answer about you, but what do you think is the biggest challenge students of archaeology face as undergraduates? Doing it. What do you think was the toughest thing for you?
Mm, that's a really interesting question because okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to talk about myself because I don't know about other people and how what they thought.
No.
But for me, it kind of felt like, I mean, there were quite a few things. So doing archaeology and studying archaeology, it's actually a really fun subject, and it's a really I feel like it was really out of the box, and you can really think about whatever you want and whenever you want about whatever time period or whatever kind of, literally, archaeology is just so universal. You can think about anything and everything, and it comes together really nicely. But unfortunately, I found that the biggest challenges were, I mean, there's no right answer
Mm,
with archaeology. And
no.
I think like that was a really big problem for me because I love theory, which is exactly kind of why I stayed on to do my master's with archaeology. I love the idea of thinking myself and kind of having an idea of what I think it should be. But because of that, there's no right answer. So it's not like you can of course ask for help, and you can talk to your like friends about it. But I think that maybe it was just for me, but I felt like a lot of my friends didn't necessarily want to talk about what they were doing. Either they didn't want to talk about it because they were like, you might cheat off me, or
Yeah.
it was, I'm going to talk extensively about it and I'm not going to give you any time to actually do your own work. It was like one of the two. You never have like spitballing ideas kind of situation. So I feel like when it came to my challenges with archaeology, the degree, it was that even though you can go and ask your lecturers for help and you can, talk about it, you don't actually have anyone to kind of help you because it should be your own idea, of course. But like, there's no right answer and you have to think about it yourself and come up with your own idea. But I think also studying archaeology, when you get to your second and your third year, you have to start thinking about the future of what you're going to be doing with your degree. And I think that I started thinking, especially in like my on-site, we did it in Grosvenor Park.
The field work,
Yeah, the field work. Thank you. And I was like, I mean, it was really fun because it was a really nice site and it was really awesome. And you kind of meet lots of people. And during that summer, I spent a lot of time digging and helping out in the local area doing some archaeology. And I realized, like, oh, it's not so fun. And I don't want to be a digger. I don't want to do that. And I was like, okay, now I have to start thinking about what I'm going to do with this degree. And I think like because of that, it kind of dwelled on, again, my assignments. And I was like, well, why am I even studying archaeology? What is going to be next for me? And I think career-wise, it was difficult. But yeah, I don't know.
That's the problem with it. We are a vocational subject, but we're also a subject that serves so many other career paths. And I do worry because some students seem to get it in their head that do an archaeology degree only if you want to become an archaeologist. But firstly, there are so many different kinds of archaeologists and heritage practitioner that you could be, but also you don't need to do that. And there's not a failure to do an archaeology degree any more than it is a failure to do a history degree and not become a historian. There's lots of options. So I think it's a very vocational degree and it has lots of exciting applications. But I think I wonder whether people beat themselves up a bit too much because they put pressure on themselves to be archaeologists in some way. I don't know.
I think so. And I think because like if you want to stay within archaeology, you can excavate either in your own country or abroad. You can work in heritage, work in museums, work in galleries, things like that. Or you can do research if you wanted to, or you can work for events, like archaeology events. And I feel like those are excellent options, but there are so many of us and not many available jobs. And I think that some people do get down this path that I'm an archaeologist, so I have to be like, well, I have to go on a dig and stuff. And it's like, that's really not the case. Because I mean, I think we spoke about it before, but archaeology is just so universal and it has a skill set that you can use for literally anything, which is incredible. And I could talk about it for years. So like, yeah.
I mean, it makes me wonder about what because I want to talk to you in a separate conversation about the masters because you didn't
Of course
you stayed. So I think we'll come back to that point. But I mean, if let's put it more positive, the big challenge is knowing what you're going to do with the degree and what trying to find your feet in terms of your perspective on it maybe. But I mean, what would you say is the best thing about doing archaeology at uni for you or for well, you said it's a bit isolating is the other negative thing. Yeah, I think that's true of all degrees is you don't know. Sorry, but go on. And what's the best? What do you think is the best thing?
Honestly, there are so many great things about an archaeology degree. Studying archaeology, and I'm going to be specific to Chester because that was where I studied. You have such a good relationship with your lecturers, and it's so close knit. And you can, we used to go out drinking or like just having fun or just having conversations with them in their offices about stuff and just talking. And like I remember we used to go on field trips and like stuff like that, and it was really fun, and you learn so much from just having casual conversation with genuine archaeologists and who aren't your bosses and who aren't like above you. They're just they're just academics and they're helping you and they're just talking to you as a friend rather than as a student. And I feel like you learn so much from that. And we also had like PhD students who would just kind of pop into your classes, and they'd be like, oh yeah, I do it this way or I do it that way. And the subjects that they chose were amazing. And I think I learned how to write a decent essay. I thought I learned how to use programs like GIS, and they were really big challenges for me because like I'm a fairly social person, but I don't really think that, like, I don't know, it's kind of difficult to put into words because like there are so many things that you kind of come across, but I think that archaeology kind of helps you get over it because it's not as clear cut as some of the other subjects.
Yeah.
And I think like that's the really big and important thing for me is that because it's not yes and no and here's the right answer and there's the wrong answer, you can think about everything and you can think about anything. And I think it really widens your sphere and it opens your mind to so many possibilities. So like, yeah, I have a story about, if I can quickly talk about it.
Yeah.
I remember we were in a lecture. I'm not going to name anyone, but we were in a lecture and we were talking about, the lecture was about the new and upcoming kind of ideas of our lecturers' like research. And they were telling us about it. And I remember when we came out of that classroom, one of my friends turned to me and they were just like, well, that's a load of crap.
You
And
mean
I
names?
was,
It was me, wasn't it? Right. I'm
no,
having
no,
one
no,
of them.
no, no, not at all. And I was just like, that's so funny. Because when I was learning about it, I was like, okay, I don't really see the connection, but okay, keep going. Like, please continue. And I was confused. I didn't really see the connection, but I was like, maybe I just don't understand it on the same kind of level. And then when I got out and they said that to me and they were like, yeah, they've just really taken that, out of complete perspective. And I was like, oh, so it wasn't just me thinking that, like you were also thinking that too. And I'm sure it's a great piece of work. Now, maybe it's been published, I'm not sure. But like, it was just really funny because like that's what archaeology does. And
You're supposed to have opinions. You don't have to agree with your lecturer, do you?
yeah,
You don't have to agree with the way they present it. Go and read up further and work out. Because I found some things presented to me, and I thought this is the biggest pile of manure I've ever heard. Then I've read it up, and I thought, do you know, actually, it's quite convincing on in text. And the other way round, some things like, wow, such a great, insightful presentation by a visiting lecturer or one of my lecturers. And then you read it up, and you go, well, maybe until you actually read the
maybe.
words, so yeah, but it's good
Yeah.
to have debates and yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, like you supervise so many PhD students. I want to know about that. Like, how do you feel about their work? Because I mean, like they're thinking outside the box, which is what they should be doing. But like,
Yeah, well, our gloves are off at PhD level. I can be really shitty to them. I mean, I don't. I mean, people on here will be able to see my interview with Brian Costello on my YouTube channel where we joke about this because I'm really tough. I challenge that, at PhD level, you can say, the feedback I give is like, why are you arguing this? Even if I agree with them, it's like you have
mm,
to challenge their perspectives. I'm not there to be their buddy, and it's about trying to say this needs a piece of work is going to be examined. Almost a book length piece of work is going to be examined by two examiners who aren't me as supervisor. It's not my judgment, so I've got to get
yeah,
them mentally and intellectually prepared to defend their arguments, and they're
yeah,
building their data set, they're analyzing their data set, they've got to justify the methods they use to analyze that data set, you know and then the big interpretive themes that they're debating. All of that needs to be properly presented, structured, and well argued. So yeah, it's I'm not a nice guy with my PhD students in the sense that obviously I'm not like Alan Sugar or something, so I don't, or what's that horrible cook guy Ramsey or something. I don't sort of scream at people, but my point is there to politely point out, well, I wasn't convinced by this chapter because while you argued X, Y, and Z, there's a series of points that don't really get
mm,
addressed that you claim you're going to, or something, or where's the evidence to back up this point? And because that's what they're going to have to face as an in and out examination. So yeah, so it's really tough at the PhD level. Obviously, undergraduates and MA students, it's more, it's less, robust, but or at
yeah,
least less antagonistic, or at least I hope it's not antagonistic at all, but at least, but I think you still got to ask with dissertation topics, you got to go, well, how is it going? No,
yeah,
still done no reading. Okay, well done. Come back
yeah,
next month, and maybe you will have got around to it. And then others, it's just like, yeah, that's totally great. Yeah, I see what your point. And they go, I'm really worried by the fact you haven't got anything to say that's critical. And I go, because I haven't seen anything that's critical. And
yeah,
so you can give them support and ideas and suggestions. Yeah, so it's difficult. Every student's different, and every student. And the problem is you go back to your early point about negative. The problem is you don't know what everyone else is going through.
Yeah.
When I have personal academic tutees, you realise in any one year group, there's one student's going through X number of students going through mental health crises, X number of students breaking up with their partners, X number of
Yeah.
students got financial woes, and you'll only hear a fraction of it. Some of them will keep it to themselves, some of them will come to you with it, some of them will go to the student support, which is excellent at Chester. But the point is, everyone's on
Yeah.
different journeys, and some people are fine, until perhaps they didn't see something coming and it hits them at the last moment just before graduation or something. It's amazing how every student's on a different journey, and you don't see behind the facade of what
Yeah.
you may rock up and go out for a drink with occasionally with people, or you may talk to people after lectures, but you don't get to know. Yeah, I don't know, it's a tough one, isn't it, because it is a very isolated academic world. Even you can say you're in a group of people, but
Yeah.
you know it can be very, you can end up feeling very isolated. I found that I'm really reflecting on my undergraduate experience, not yours.
No, no. As you should, though. I think, like, I mean, I guess, like, whenever you talk about your opinion, it's always going to be your experience. And it's actually really interesting to hear about your experience, not only as an undergraduate, but also as a lecturer teaching us undergraduates. Because I think, like, you usually only think about yourself and how you feel, but really, like, how people perceive you is also really important, especially if you're having problems, issues. But yeah, the student support at Chester is amazing, I must
Yeah.
say. Very, very good.
There's a gender and age thing with me, is that I have now increasingly less students come to see me because I'm an older, grumpy looking man. Whereas,
Aw.
well, 20, when I was a union lecturer, I used to have students wanting to talk to me about all their problems, in a way.
Yeah.
And it's not that I've become less interested. I've become more, I think, more effective at dealing with the challenges of essay writing. I was used to be really quite, well, just get on with it. Well, I don't know which of this. Here's the 15 books. Go read it. Rock on. Get on with it. Crack
Yeah.
on. The deadline's next week. Bye. Next, please. I wasn't that bad, but my point is, I've got a lot better at
Yeah.
coming up with constructive suggestions. But less students come to see me because I don't fit I'm not a. And maybe in the next 10 years it will come back up again, as maybe people will think I'm sort of an old granddad who can answer their queries or something. But my point is, different students orientate to different lecturers, and there's always an opportunity for them to get the opinions of somebody, and
Yeah.
so I think we do our best we can for the students, but inevitably it's really difficult to know what's going on in their lives, and particularly with COVID. Oh, the stories I could
Yeah.
tell you about that. I mean, it's been so
Um,
tough for the students, but we've done our best, and and I think the university has, there's
mm,
been issues and challenges for us all, but I think it's the support services have really done their best. The IT people, the fact that all the students should have been able to use this kind of facility to,
yeah.
get their lectures online. I think, there's a lot of unsung heroes behind the scenes at universities. The
Yeah,
lecturers, the
definitely.
support staff, just to keep the degrees going and get the students through, because it's been, and so it's even more insulting to see the way that some of our colleagues at other universities have been treated like crap by their
Yeah.
institutions. But anyway, that's another story.
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to say, to touch on that really quickly, is that I think that it's difficult to motivate students in university. I think it's extra difficult to motivate them when they're chilling at home on their laptops. So congratulations. I don't know, like, what the situation is in the UK. I've been in Japan this entire COVID time.
Yeah.
But like, I've heard stories, and I just want to say, like, congratulations and, like, well done, I guess. And I am actually really sorry for the ones that, lost out and maybe weren't as appreciated as they should have been, because I think that it's been a hard time for everyone, but, like, good on you. I'm impressed, to be
Oh, thanks.
honest.
I
Yeah.
think I don't think our students, because the other thing is, I don't think the students I've just been marking know how bloody well they did,
Oh,
because
really?
they've worked so hard, and some, yes, it is more difficult for them to be motivated, but those that
Mm.
have, against all the challenges, I think some of the marks I've given out in the last year as a cohort are the
Mm.
best marks I've given for certain modules, not for every group, not every, but I think there's some. some people have worked their socks off in really
Yeah.
trying circumstances. So yeah, the students have done well, my colleagues have done well, but yeah, it's been a tough time. But thank you. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see if anyone thanks us or anyone notices. But but the thing is, yeah, it's been a tough time. But I mean, I was going to say, I was going to call this myth busting archaeology degrees. Have we busted any myths for anyone? I suppose it depends on what people thought or expected beforehand.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think we've given us honest. I mean, the other thing is that we hope people chip in with their views and counter and say, well,
Yeah.
actually, I found the third year easy and the first year was tough, or the second year was the hardest, or I found the field work easy, but I didn't find, everyone has a different experience. So I'm hoping people sort of, give us their feedback on their experiences, because I think hopefully people listening to this who may be wanting to go to do a degree, whether it's at Chester where we have a fabulous archaeology program, or if they're unlucky somewhere else, you know, no, not that I'm being partisan here, no, but if they'll want to know, about student experiences. So I think it's going to be your views are going to be really, really helpful. So do you want to do this again, Afnan, and have another chat later on, maybe a part 2 of looking more at the content of archaeology degrees and sort of drill into, what you learned or didn't learn about the human past?
Absolutely. I feel like I didn't answer the questions as well as maybe you or maybe other students wish I could have, but I definitely love to do it again. I mean, I think for me, I would have loved to have someone who would talk honestly about what the degree was like, and I think it will help people consider their options and stuff like that. So I'd love to. I think it would sound fun if anyone even cares to listen.
Well,
I
if
think
anyone
that's
does listen,
fine.
perhaps we can get them to write in their questions. So maybe maybe by part 2, we'll have some questions for you or for me or for
Oh,
both of us to answer. We can but see. I don't know. You can never
yeah.
know with these digital things who will be listening in and what they'll get out of it. But,
Definitely. I mean, like, I do hope, I mean, like, if they do have any questions, it would be awesome to be able to help them or answer them from my experience. But yeah, like, I'm just happy. One, I haven't seen you in such a long time, and it's really nice to just have a conversation with you. So, yeah.
it's a natter. Yeah, it's great. I'm so jealous that you're out in Japan and doing, which we've established is just beyond France.
Of course.
It's, it's great that you've been out there doing such, new things and fresh things. And
Yeah.
but yeah, next time we should chat about because we actually did. For those that don't know, we actually collaborated on a conference and a book together.
Yeah.
So we should perhaps talk about that. But we'll see if anyone else has any questions. But for now, perhaps we should sign off and
Yeah.
say farewell to everybody.
Definitely. Well, definitely thank you for having me. Thank you very much for whoever's listening. I hope that you enjoyed it. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you again soon, I guess.